Hi guys, and welcome to episode 5 of Know Your Creator. I'm the host, as always, WandrinDutch, and this week we have the honour of getting one of YouTube's rising stars on, and a panel member, of course, of Mix Up Midweek, Archimedes Boxenberger. How are you doing today, brother?
The honor is all mine to be invited here today. I've been following this new format of yours for all the 4 other episodes. It's a great format. It's my pleasure to be here, and I can't wait to talk gaming.
Yeah, same here, same here. Like I say, it's you've had an absolute rocket of a first, let's say, a first year to the channel, because obviously the initial year when you set it up is always a little bit slow for some, but last year was an absolute milestone for yourself. It really took off.
Absolutely.
Of course, before we get into your creator journey, as it were, we always start with the important questions. So, first things first. The first question, and as always, same for everybody else, what is it that got you into gaming in the first place? What is it that started your love for gaming?
Well, I've been gaming for my entire life. I remember when I was a really little kid, my father had an Atari. But I think where it really started for me was the OG Game Boy. I remember getting that on Christmas, and I played so much on the OG Game Boy. I think that's really where the love for video games started. And soon after, my brother and we got the NES, and then soon after that, I think half a year or a year after we got the NES, the Super Nintendo launched, and we immediately traded in the old one, got the new one, and from there on out, it was basically a never-ending story. Yeah, I had basically every console since the Super Nintendo. Not every console at launch, of course, but yeah, that's basically where it all started. I was a Nintendo kid. We had that Sega systems at home, but here in Germany, Sega wasn't really popular. I didn't have any friends at school who had a Sega system. I was the only one, so I never had the chance to trade games or talk about the games I played on the Sega system. So for me, it was mainly the Nintendo. And of course, later then, when during the N64 era, we also got the PlayStation. To this day, I never will forget how I learned about that the PlayStation 1 actually existed, because when it came out, it wasn't really popular here in Europe. Nobody knew it. They didn't really promote it. It was really bad localized. Yeah, there were no German settings or anything. It was all in English. And back in the time, my English wasn't so good. Well, it's still not so good, but it was really hard when you are 14, 15 years old and you only speak a few words in English to play everything in English. But my best friend called me. His neighbor got a new video game system that has a CD. I will never forget that it has a CD as a medium, and we were all used to these cartridges and everything. And so he borrowed it from his neighbor, and I went over and we played the whole night Resident Evil 1. Scariest thing I've ever done. I grabbed my pants. That scene with the dogs, I will never forget that. And that's how I learned about the PlayStation. And the Christmas after, we also got a PlayStation in our homes, and from there on, I basically had every console and handheld. To be honest, I had a good period of time when when I was 15 and maybe 20, 21. I also played a lot on the PC. I always say that was the golden age of the PC gaming. I built my first own PC, was a 486. And when I say you build a PC back in those days, and it wasn't really easy, because you had to really learn how to do it. There was no internet. You couldn't Google how to do it. Yeah. I remember my friend and I, we always went to the library. We rented books about how to build a PC, and how to install Windows on it. It wasn't easier back in the time. Windows 3.1 was a pain in the ass to install, but we did it. And that's when I also played a lot of PC games. Of course, then later Unreal Tournament, Quake, those kind of shooters. I remember the first Battlefield. Man, that was insane, that game back in the time. All these kind of games. But to be honest, I stopped playing on the PC when I went to the university in my early 20s. It just became too expensive. Always updating your PC, and it became a kind of a hassle, always installing drivers, and then you install the new graphic driver, and for some reason your sound system didn't work anymore. That was those were those days of PC gaming, and to be honest, that's where I stopped playing on the PC and focused mainly on console gaming.
Awesome. So you mentioned the first game, the first console you played on was the Nintendo, then the Super Nintendo. So what game was it then that really stands out to you as being synonymous with that initially? Was it Super Mario or was it something else?
Oh, of course, Super Mario and Tetris on the Game Boy. Those two games, I don't know how many hours I played with those. And I remember Zelda Link's Awakening on the Game Boy was kind of an epiphany to me, because it was so much more than just these little jump and runs or puzzle games like Mario and Tetris. It had a story, it had a world to explore, and that basically continued also on the Super Nintendo. When I remember back to those days, the games that really stood out to me are, of course, Zelda, Link to the Past, but also Secret of Mana, and one of my favorite games of all time, Secret of Evermore. These kind of RPG, early Japanese and Western RPGs that we had on the Super Nintendo. Those are really the games that stood out to me. They were so much more than just a video game. It was a world to explore, to immerse yourself in. And I think this love for these RPGs and open worlds still sticks with me. If I think about my favorite games over the last years, they are all in some way either RPGs or open world games.
That's definitely mainly. So obviously you probably attribute that then to like you say, Secrets of Mana and other games like that originally.
Yeah, absolutely. This was just incredible, being a kid at the time, and you had those huge, for the time, huge worlds that you could just immerse yourself in. I remember A Link to the Past. It was such a gigantic video game world. Of course, if kids today see that game, it's a gimmicky kind of game for them. But back in the time, it was mind blowing.
Yeah, I know I completely agree there. To be fair, my RPG stemmed more PlayStation time. Obviously, starting with the Final Fantasies, etc. I didn't play the original Final Fantasy until I had a PlayStation 1, and then they did this like I think it's called Final Fantasy Anthology when they had 1, 2, and 3 on disc.
I remember that.
That's the first time I played them.
Yeah. I went back when my first Final Fantasy was actually Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation. But I then went back and played that anthology you just mentioned after I finished Final Fantasy VII. What an amazing game back in the day. It had so much that other games were just not able to realize back in those days. Absolutely fantastic game. These are really some of the games.
It's the stories that really capture kind of your imagination, especially when you're at that age as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was an interesting time because the video game world wasn't as it is today. It wasn't so well established. It was still seen as this thing for kids, yeah. And I think this is what the PlayStation 1 accomplished, and why I still hold that generation to really high standards, is because it kind of matured video games. Yeah,
Yeah.
it made with games like Resident Evil or Final Fantasy and all these kind of games we had, they took the gaming industry to a adult level. Yeah, it wasn't just for kids anymore. So this was really a revolutionary time where the gaming industry, of course, back in the days, we didn't realize that. It's just something we see now in hindsight. But I think this is the time period where gaming really established itself as an entertainment and art form that we have it today. So yeah, those were some fantastic days. I mean, in the same era we had the N64, yeah, with games like of course Mario and Zelda, but also GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, those kind of games. Man, I held so much memories to GoldenEye. It was illegal to buy a GoldenEye here in Germany back in the day.
Really?
Yeah, back in the days, you were not allowed to buy games where you shoot human beings. In Germany, all games where you shoot human beings were just forbidden. Yeah, but I was an exchange student back in the day in actually London. Yeah, or a suburb from London, and I bought it there. I brought it home. I was the king at school. Yeah, I mean that game. Everybody has heard of the game. Yeah, but nobody has actually played it. That was really cool. And we played so many hours of GoldenEye. Yeah, great days.
That's awesome. Again, I think we had this discussion not long ago about what it was it the last podcast potentially, or the one before, where we were talking about what was legal, what wasn't legal in Germany, and it's obviously changed a lot since it was, but there's a lot of things that have been hindered over the years.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. But basically, the Germans always had problem with violence. Yeah, whenever it got gory, bloody, the Germans really censored a lot. We were relatively free when it comes to something sexual. Yeah, so nudity is no problem. but violence, it's always been a difficult thing. And actually, only over the last couple of years, the laws have been removed. For instance, all the Wolfenstein games, the Nazi symbols were not allowed in those games. Yeah, so we got special versions where they removed all the Nazi symbols and exchanged everything. That's basically how.
Them for?
Pardon me?
What did they change them to?
It looks like a little bit like a pi. The mathematic 3.14 and so on pi symbol. It's kind of like that. And then they were not referring to the Nazis. They were always just referring to the regime. They called it always the regime and the guys from the regime, and it's just a weird version. And actually, that's how I lost my first Xbox account about probably 10, 11 years ago, back at the end of the 360 era. I set my Xbox to the UK, so I have the local UK store, and I bought a Wolfenstein game, or I don't know whether it was Wolfenstein or Doom. Either it was either Wolfenstein or Doom. I bought there in the digital store and then changed my settings back to Germany, and that wasn't allowed. And Xbox locked my account, so I had to make a new one. That's why my Xbox account is only like 10 or 11 years old.
That's absolutely mad. I'm glad it's starting to free up a little bit, but again, from history, they went from doing something one extreme to the other. It's like
Yeah, yeah. I mean, over the last couple of years, they have been really removing a lot of those restrictions. I think the first Doom before Eternal, Doom 2016 or 17, when it came out, was the first Doom that was officially released in Germany. Yeah, so and after that, I can't really remember any game after 2016 or 17 where we didn't get the game or a censored version. The last censored game was Wolfenstein New Colossus. And after that, everything was removed. So, yeah, it's getting better over here. But it was back in the days. It was really challenging to get those kind of games here in Germany. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it is getting better. At least you can experience the way they're meant to be played.
Yeah, absolutely, and it makes a difference. I mean, those censored games. If you censor a Wolfenstein, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one.
yeah, definitely.
That brings us on to our next question, though, because we have discussed the consoles that you have had throughout the years, and obviously kind of a run of which consoles you've had. But when you first were able to purchase a console out of your own money, whether it be pocket money or birthday money or even just saved up from job, the first console you purchased for yourself, what was that?
Good question. It was either the Sega Genesis or the N64. I'm not sure. I dare say it was the N64. But I'm not really sure. It could also have been the Genesis. I know I remember I did a lot of what's the English word for it? Delivered newspapers and stuff like that in the morning. Yeah, paper route. Exactly. Did a lot of those. I sold a lot of my Lego toys and stuff like that on the there was a kids market where you could sell your toys, stuff like that. And with that I bought all my video game systems over the years, basically. Of course, Christmas and birthday presents always helped, but yeah, I think the N64 was or the Genesis. It was either one that I really bought for my own money. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. So when you mentioned the Genesis there, of course, at that point in time, had Sega improved its standing in Germany?
No, they never had. They did never get a stand here. It kind of reminded me really like Xbox started here as well. They didn't advertise their systems at all. Nobody was talking about it. And if you were not really a hardcore video game fan, you just didn't know that this system existed. It was the same for the Xbox. To be honest, that only changed during the Xbox One era, when Xbox actually started to at least advertise their system a little bit here in Germany. And the same problem had Sega, that the Dreamcast, I'm not really sure if anyone knew that in Germany that system actually existed. It was a shame, because it had so much potential. The Dreamcast was so far ahead of its time. So many great games that a lot of gamers just didn't experience here in Germany.
Yeah. Is that? Did you end up picking up a Dreamcast at all in the end then, or?
Yeah, I didn't play that many games. Probably it was just the time, because when all your friends talk about PlayStation or Nintendo and you can trade actually the games and borrow it from a friend. I played a lot of Skies of Arcadia on the Dreamcast. That was probably the game that stood out there. I played a couple of others as well, but it was just you never had someone to play with and to talk about the game. So that's why I just didn't play as much Sega as I should have, back.
To be fair, it was pretty much the same over here. I only knew one person with a Dreamcast, just the one, and that was my best friend. Nobody else that played video games had a Dreamcast. Just one person.
Yeah. So you see, that's really, and yeah, like I said, it reminded me a lot of the early Xbox days. I only knew a handful of guys who actually just knew about the system. They didn't even own one, but they knew what it was. Yeah, it's sometimes so strange how these companies want to sell their video game systems and then just don't advertise them.
Yeah, it is odd, and again, it seems to be very much, and it sounds strange, but very much limited to Europe. I think internationally, obviously in the States and over in Asia, they seem to be advertised perfectly fine. Of course, Xbox have had an issue with advertising in Asia up until recently, where they just haven't.
I'm not sure whether it was an advertisement problem or if it was just a console or image problem, because I only was one time in Japan, but I remember when I on the airport there was a big Xbox billboard. It really stood out to me because I've never seen one in Germany till this day. So
it's still, to be fair, even now, Xbox still struggles to advertise properly in Europe.
Yeah.
We know so that. Weird. If you look around most the sides of most buses over here is just PlayStation. Billboards, PlayStation.
Everything.
Very
TV ads.
Xbox.
Yeah. I haven't seen a German TV ad from Xbox, I think. But you see, really? PlayStation. Yeah, I'm not saying. Well, I don't watch that much TV, regular TV anymore. Yeah, could be that. With Netflix and everything, I just don't watch regular TV anymore. But to be honest, I have a lot of PlayStation ads in my mind because I just see them. Like you said, billboards during sports events. Yeah, of course, soccer is here very popular. Yeah, you always see those. What's the English word? The little fences around the field. Yeah, all filled with PlayStation advertisement, never Xbox. It is weird, and it is the same across probably all European countries. Yeah, I mean, a lot of European countries still don't have localization for Xbox. Yeah, it's then always in English. Everything. There are a lot of countries where the Xbox is still not officially available. I know Croatia, for instance. Yeah, you can't buy Xbox products in Croatia. It's just weird to me when you see the success of PlayStation across Europe. Yeah, it's not that Europeans don't like video games. That's not the case.
It's a mad. Again, that's a topic for another day.
Definitely.
Advertisement failures of Xbox, and but never mind. On from your first consoles then. Before we get into the next main topic, what is your favorite ever game console?
Oh, I mean, there were so many great ones over the years. The N64 stood out. I think the GameCube is still highly underrated.
I'll completely agree. I spent so much time on the GameCube.
Oh yeah, so absolutely. I mean, the PlayStation 2, come on, it was an amazing system. But I think the Xbox 360 is something that really stood out to me. Maybe it was just my age when that console launched, and the memories I have, especially for the early 360 days, for the first 3-4 years, there was a lot of stuff going on in my private life, and I have so many fond memories of that system. But also when I think about my favorite games over the last 30 years or so, I think I always say I have like 6, maybe 7 games I consider a 10 out of 10, and 3 of them are from the 360 era. So yeah, I gotta give it to the Xbox 360. Just an amazing console, so many great games. I've never had the issue with the red ring. Yeah, so
you were one of the lucky ones then.
Yeah, one of the very lucky ones. Although by day one, Xbox 360 broke when I moved in with my wife. I accidentally dropped it. Yeah, so well, back in the days, she wasn't my wife. She was my girlfriend. And when we moved into our first apartment together, I accidentally dropped it. So I got the slim version. I still have that. But yeah, I guess the 360 is it. Yeah.
Awesome. And you mentioned it was just, you said 6 or 7 games that stood out to you as being in your top 10 when that generation was out. What are those kind of games that kind of stood out to you then on that platform?
Skyrim, Arkham City, and Red Dead Redemption 1. Those are 3 games I really consider a 10 out of 10. I mean, there are so many incredible video games I played over the years. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Uncharted series. Uncharted 2 could also easily be a 10 out of 10 for me. There are so many other games. Gears, especially Gears 2. I just adore that game, and Halo. Halo 3, I don't know how many hours I played Halo 3. Yeah, there are so many fantastic games during that era, but there's just when you think in retrospective, over the years, I always say Secret of Evermore is from the Super Nintendo era, is one game I really still consider a 10 out of 10. I play that game once a year. It's just an amazing experience. I would say Mario and Zelda Ocarina of Time, Mario 64 and Zelda Ocarina of Time are also, especially Zelda Ocarina of Time, it was an incredible experience when you for the first time stepped out of that little village in the beginning, and you had this amazing open world with a sunset, and you got on the back of your horse Epona, and you rode across the plain and the sunset and all the feeling, the music. This was just an amazing experience. It stood out for me, and that's why I consider it a 10 out of 10. And then we have the 3 games, Skyrim, Arkham City, and Red Dead 1, that I have the same memories with. And I think the last one I would consider 10 out of 10 is The Witcher 3. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, all them titles are obviously right up there. We mentioned this beforehand. It was Skyrim's one of them games that I've put hundreds upon hundreds of hours on. You've put hundreds of hours on multiple places.
Systems.
Yeah. And at this moment, I'm stuck in that one where it's a case of it's just had its 60 frames per second boost, and I'm debating whether or not to continue playing it.
I jumped back in earlier this day. I played like an hour earlier with the 60 FPS boost. I mean, it's magnificent. Really, it's mind blowing. It looks so good with the auto HDR and the FPS boost. Amazing. But I'm not going to, hopefully, don't fall back and spend another 100 or 150 hours with another playthrough. Although it's still worth it. It's a fantastic game. Amazing
It's
world.
an awesome game. The only thing stopping me is I've played hundreds of hours in this game before, and I've got so many more new games that I still
exactly.
haven't yet to play.
Exactly.
Like, do I spend 100 hours on this game that I've already beat
again?
Or
yeah, I totally get that.
New?
Yeah.
Dear me. That takes us nicely, though, into our next topic, talking about games that are in your top 10s. This one might be a little bit tougher to whittle down, though. What is your favorite ever video game franchise or video game?
Franchise. I mean, I could say Gears or Halo, but I have to give it probably to the Batman Arkham series. I really love that series. I'm a huge Batman fan. I've always been. It's probably why I hold that series so near and dear to my heart, because even as a kid, I didn't read many comics, but I always read Batman comics. Watched every movie. I'm a huge Batman fan, and that series really, when Arkham Asylum launched, it took the superhero genre to another level. And Arkham City is, like I said, for me, it's a 10 out of 10, and I really don't give out that lightly. It's just amazing. I even loved Origins, although everyone seems to hate on that game, but it had one of the best boss fights in the series. I think the Arkham series is definitely one that stood out. I could say Zelda is also such a series, but then Zelda also had a couple of missteps. Skyward Sword, for instance. I don't know why they are making a remaster out of that one, but that series had their ups and downs. But the Arkham series is really something that stood out to me. I could also say The Witcher, of course, but actually the real masterpiece is Witcher 3. Witcher 2 was awesome, but I wouldn't say it is that kind on the same level. Yeah, so
no.
And that's why I go with the Arkham series.
Awesome. Is there a particular game within that series then that is the best? Is it Arkham City or?
Arkham City is definitely standing out there. I love that game from start to finish. What else? If I had to choose a single game that is probably not in that series, I would go either with Red Dead 1 or The Witcher 3.
Red Dead 2 doesn't get a look in then.
Red Dead 2 was a great game, no doubt, but it couldn't match the first one. It had pacing issues, in my opinion. It was an amazing open world. The open world was the star of the game. The story was kind of predictable, to be honest. And it just, the pacing was something where I said, it's a 9, it's not a 10.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say that at times it was a very slow game.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of the games where I've got it. I've had it for a while. I've probably put about 10 hours into it. But it's that big of a game and that slow of a game that you really have to be invested in that world to want to play it.
Yeah,
consistently. And I've never been massively invested in that game anyway. So that for me, it was even harder to get into initially. And I know just how beautiful it is, and I know how good of a game it is. But it's also a very slow game.
It is
very slow game.
Very slow.
Whether or not I've got the patience for that.
I can totally understand that. Like I said, Red Dead 1 is definitely one of my most favorite games ever. However, like you said, that it is so slow. And the thing for me really is, my biggest problem right now with gaming is not having great games. I have so many great games I want to play. So I need to have a game that values my time. And if I have the feeling that game doesn't give me value for my time I invest into it, it is a problem for me. That's why I don't get into the Yakuza games, for instance. I know a lot of people really enjoy them.
One thing I will say that you'll probably enjoy is Like a Dragon is so much better than the other Yakuza games.
The last I tried was Yakuza 0.
Yes, same. Yeah. And that thing just was all cutscene.
Yeah, it was cutscene after cutscene. It is, and that's where my problem then comes in, because then I see my backlog with, like, I don't know how many games I have in my backlog, hundreds of games. Yeah. That I could also be playing, and so yeah, that's why I also didn't get into Death Stranding or something. If I don't feel that the game values my time I invest into it, I'm just moving on to the next one. Huh.
Yeah, you're very much on the same ballpark as me then, because I'm exactly the same. I don't feel like my time's worth it on that game.
Yeah.
When I don't bother. I'm like,
yeah, that's also the thing with
riding a horse before I get to an objective.
Yeah, exactly. And then you need to ride 10 minutes to an objective, and the objective takes you 3 minutes to finish, and then you have to ride again 10 minutes to the next objective. That's just a pacing issue. Yeah. It's similar with these difficult games, like, I don't know, the Soul series or something. What makes them so good is it is they don't feel unfair. There are other really difficult games out there, yeah, where you just think it's not fair that you died. This is also something where when a game puts me off, if it feels unfair to me, yeah. For instance, I played through Hollow Knight, a super brutal, difficult game. I died like thousands of times till I've seen the title screen, but I didn't die once. Where I had the feeling it wasn't my fault. So that's why I stuck with it. And then there are other games where they are just unfair. And that's also something where I don't have the feeling that the game values my time if it's unfair.
Yeah. No, completely agree. One thing we'll go into next then, and this is the purpose really of this, is know your creator. So we'll get into one of the history questions then. What started? What got you into and started your journey into becoming a YouTube creator, a content creator for the video games?
Well, before I started YouTube, I was active on Twitter. And before I was active on Twitter, I was active in a German Xbox community. Was super active there, and I've seen that a lot of people always posted their news coming from Twitter. Yeah, Phil Spencer said this or that on Twitter, or I don't know. And that's when I created my Twitter account. But I think the first year or 1.5 years, I didn't tweet one single thing. I just used it as a news medium. Yeah. And then I actually won a controller, an Xbox controller, the first Elite controller. I won that. And they asked me if I'm on social, whether I should tweet something. And I think this was my first tweet. And I got like, that tweet kind of went viral. And I immediately had from 0 followers. I was 1.5 years on Twitter, and I had 0 followers. It went up to 200 or something like that with just one single tweet. My timeline was completely empty. Nothing, was totally crazy. And that's when I started to simply put out some screenshots and opinions, and then I got to learn the community, and that was about 3 years ago, something like that, probably. And then I slowly grew on Twitter. Not big. Then I was stuck in between, I don't know, 500-600 followers, something like that on Twitter for a while. But I had a lot of fun with the community. It was a lot of cool interactions, daily conversations in the DMs or public via the tweets with a lot of people. I think that's where I got to know you, because you've always posted so many cool controllers. I thought, that dude, that is awesome what he's doing. Yeah, and people like that. And one guy I learned and really interacted was Boom, actually. Back in the day, he wasn't that big. I think his channel was below 1,000 subs, and I don't know how many followers he had on Twitter. I don't know. But I started to regularly talk with Boom. Every morning when I woke up, it was late night for him. Yeah, he always wrote me something. sent me links to news and stuff like that. We talked about gaming on more or less on a daily basis, and then he started his podcasts, and then he asked me, dude, do you want to come on one of my shows? And that's where I started to actually content create to some sort with podcasting on Boom's show, and then I guested on a lot of other podcasts. A couple of them you probably know, Season Gaming, and then the Green Pass crew, and a couple of others. I guested there, and then it was actually were 2 or 3 guys. One of them you're familiar with is Boom. They just approached me and said, "Hey, dude, you have so many strong opinions about gaming, and you should do kind of a YouTube channel and just put your thoughts about gaming out there." And I was thinking about that for like 6 months or something, and but I didn't have the time. It's just I never thought I have the time to do that next to my 2 jobs that I have. I have a main job, and my second job is I give lectures at the University of Applied Sciences, and then of course I have a family and 2 kids, and I want to spend time with them, and I just I never had thought I had the time. And then the pandemic started, and the first lockdown, my wife and I we were sitting at home 24 hours, and I said, I have to do something. My company was closed for 4 weeks. We were all on forced vacation at the time, and I said, okay, if you don't do it now, you'll never do it. And then on March 10th last year, I uploaded my first YouTube video. So I had actually my 1-year YouTube anniversary this week. But the first...
What an amazing growth you've had. Is it over 3,000?
3,200 is where I'm at now. I've never thought I come this far. Really, I've never thought that so many people want to hear what I have to say about gaming. This is still blowing my mind. If you consider 3,200 people decided to actually click that subscribe button and see now my content in their timeline, it's just still blows my mind. I'm truly grateful, and still it's hard to understand why sometimes, because when I started my first like 10 videos or so, they were really not good. They weren't. I actually went back a couple of days ago. I had a look, and I was thinking about deleting them because they suck big time. But I leave them up there because it's a reminder for me where I come from. I started really with I didn't have a proper mic. I started with my headset from my Astro A50 to record that. I didn't have the idea where I get music for videos that I can actually use. I didn't know about that stuff. But then I started that journey, and I had so much fun doing it because, you know, as a passionate gamer, you always kind of think about gaming. I sit at work in a boring meeting, and I kind of go through my phone on Twitter and think about gaming, or go through the news and stuff like that. You kind of always have that to some degree in your head, which is awesome. And then to put that in a video format, it really became another hobby of mine that is just as much fun as gaming itself. Putting out these videos, and then I decided to invest a little bit more time, and I bought a mic and a couple of other things that helped me really to put the production value to another level. And then, of course, I talked a lot to other content creators, asked them, how are you doing this or that? I had, for instance, I had a party chat with Dealer Gaming. People sometimes don't really realize how nice of a guy he actually is. He never takes credit for that, but he helps so many out in the community behind the curtains. Without wanting everything. He really sat down with me, explained me, walked me a little bit through his process, how he captures trailers, how he makes them look good, because sometimes you know that when you just screen record something, it can look really weird. The colors are off, or the frame settings don't match your output resolution or whatever, and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I learned a lot from him and others that just gave me feedback. And yeah, and then over the last summer, there was this next gen hype in the air, and it really helped, of course, the channel grow a little bit. And I still say the first 100 subs were the most difficult ones to get. Was harder to get the first to 100 than to 1,000. And now I'm here, and people actually want to hear what I have to say. Yeah, whenever a news drops from Xbox or sometimes even from Sony, I get DMs. Are you making a video about this? We want to hear what you have to say. And this is just, it is amazing to me. Even the sheer idea that you invite me to just talk about me as a creator. I still don't consider myself that. I'm just a dude who loves to play games and puts out screenshots on Twitter and opinions on YouTube. This is, yeah, it's become such an amazing hobby. I enjoy it so much.
It's not only an amazing hobby for yourself, of course, but you've got, and you can see that just on Twitter alone, let alone any comments that you might get on YouTube, but on Twitter alone, the amount of people that retweet your posts as soon as you put out, you've got a new video, and the amount of people that look forward to all the new videos that you put out all the time. And it's obviously credit to you and the production value you put into it, because it's one thing just putting a video out, but it's another thing putting video out that's created with quality. And not just a simple recording with someone speaking over the top of it. It's obviously with yourself, it's multi-layered. You've got the music in the background, you've got transitions between videos, you've got the outro and the intro, and everything else in between. Not just speaking into a microphone playing video games like some do.
Yeah.
The value is there as well. So I think it's credit to yourself, of course, the amount of time you put into those videos, and even though Boom was before you, he obviously, it speaks volumes that he sees you as somebody that inspires him.
Yeah, I've heard him speaking here on your channel about that, because Boom was always the podcast legend for me. Yeah, and I learned so much on how to talk in podcasts and how to put out opinions about it. And but to see him talk about taking me as an inspiration for his videos, because he's now doing also these little shorter videos, not in a podcast format, but just in an edited video. It's just amazing. And I remember him calling me, asking me, dude, I want to do that. But can you help me out? And then we had a long Skype session. I walked him through my process, how I do it, showed him a little bit how the editing software works and everything. And it was just so much fun to be able to give something back to him. Because he's just such a positive guy in the community. He does so much. He works really hard. He's such a hardworking podcaster with 4 shows every week. And everything he does behind the scenes as well. People always think podcasting is just putting on turning on the mic, clicking on stream, but it's actually a lot more. You have to not just put the topics together, but you have to manage that. You have to ask all the people for your shows, get the panels together, get everything on the technical side working, and so on. He does a lot of work there, and he never not once do you have that feeling that he is what's the English word for that? He's such a humble person. He doesn't take it for granted. He always supports others. That is something that you, with some other YouTubers, you sometimes see that, but he really is super supportive for everyone. He gives everyone who wants to join the content creator community. He gives everybody a chance to be on his show and just try himself out on a podcast or something like that. Yeah, that's really cool. So I was really grateful to give something back to him and give him some advice. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. And it's like I say, it's testament to you that a lot of people are seeing you as inspiration now, because of the quality of the videos you're putting out. So that's all down to yourself. So congratulations so far anyway for the success on the channel.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's like I said when I started, and everyone can go back. The videos are still up there. The first video.
Right, if you go back and have a look at the first podcast episode with just me, Erwin, Pat, and Sean,
yeah,
that was awkward.
It was. Yeah, it is because you need to find your groove, and then it wasn't just overnight that suddenly I decided, okay, now I want to put it in more quality. It evolved, of course, over the course of the last year, and I'm still trying to improve all the time. Yeah, I always have something in mind. Lately, I'm experimenting a lot with the audio. The latest video that I just uploaded today, I recorded the audio in a different way. I wanted to get it a little bit more powerful, the voice and everything. So I'm still trying myself out. Where can I improve and everything? But it's all because of the amazing feedback of the community. Like you said, it's a lot of work. It takes me about 6 to 8 hours to do such a video. From writing script, recording audio, editing the video, putting together the thumbnail and everything. It's in between 6 to 8 hours for a 8 to 10 minute video. And if it weren't for the awesome community that always gives feedback, positive and of course there are toxic ones, I'll leave them out. But I'm also very happy that a lot of people say, dude, I have constructive criticism. Yeah, I'm always happy to hear that. But like you said, it seems that so many people enjoy the content, and that really makes me happy, because that's why I started it, and that's why I'm still doing it, because of the engagement with the community, having discussions about the topics. I always say it's absolutely okay to disagree with me. I mean, that if you have a disagreement, it can make up the best conversations. And yeah, so and a lot of people do that. Even if they disagree with me, you can have a normal discussion about that. Like I said, there are always some toxic fanboys. You always get them always, but I just ignore them and focus on the positive community. And there are so many awesome gamers out there that just want to engage, that are happy to talk about gaming, and that's why I do it, and that's why I'm gladly putting in this work each and every week. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. That takes us nicely onto our last main topic of today, then, and that is, what are your plans for the future of the Archimedes YouTube channel?
Well, I'm actually thinking about what else can I do. I was trying out some live shows in end of last year. Of course, a lot of people have been asking me, why don't I do a weekly podcast or something like that as well. It's at the moment just a time issue. Of course, I'd love to do it, but it takes up a lot of time. I think what the next journey will be, I am trying out 2 different things now. I want to go a little bit into reviews. I want to do a little bit more reviews.
I was just about to ask whether or not you were going to go into the review section.
Yeah, I did them, or I'm still doing them sometimes on my channel. Usually they don't really perform well, but that's not why I'm doing it. It's just after I've finished the game, so I want to put together my thoughts about the game, and then I put it in a video format. But the thing is, this is really a difficult topic on YouTube, because if you don't get review codes up front, and I'm way too small for publishers to give me review codes up front, it's a difficult space on YouTube. But I'm definitely want to do that, and I want to go a little bit into the I wouldn't call it interview section, but that's what I have in mind, to have a couple of edited interviews on my channel, because that's also something behind the scenes. I sometimes really get cool messages from developers, and they just say to you, "Hey, I've seen your video about this or that." I got that for instance from the Unreal video I uploaded about 3 weeks ago. One of the software engineers from Epic, he DM'd me and said, "Awesome video, you explained it so great." And we had a little chat, and that gave me the idea to expand a little bit in that territory, ask him for a short interview of 10 or 15 minutes, talk about a couple of things, and put that into a video format. That's something I'm thinking of. And then, of course, I want to cover a little bit more diverse. I've been covering a lot of Xbox things lately over the last 2 or 3 months. I want to go back and actually talk also a little bit about Sony, but they are just not so much in the news right now, as Xbox is. So that's basically the plan. I will probably do one.
To be honest, the fact that they're not in the news as much, why the reason that might be.
Yeah, exactly. That is a good question. I think they are also now dealing with the afterfall of the whole pandemic, of course, on the one side, and then the other side, they have never been such a company that engages as much in the community. I don't see any of their executives being active on Twitter. But I regularly see Phil Spencer, Major Nelson, Jason Ronald, and so on, Eric Greenberg, all those guys. They are so active with the community, and that's just how they stay in the news. By just talking to us gamers. And that's actually the reason why it is, of course, sometimes a little bit easier for you as a content creator to just cover Xbox these days.
It is. It's much easier, and obviously from my angle, it's exactly the same, and I'm sure a lot of people are. But it's much easier to just cover. Far easier, unless you're a conglomerate where you've got several people using your YouTube channel to upload content. As one person, it's much easier to cover one platform than it is to cover 3 or 4. That's too much work in itself, because you have to not only keep up with the news for every particular platform, but keep up with the in-depth news for every platform.
Exactly. Exactly. The in-depth thing is probably the best phrasing you could use, because, of course, I'm familiar with the news of Nintendo and Sony, but it's the big media headlines, and if you look at the topics of a video on one of my channels, I did a video about the development diary from Ninja Theory, where they introduced their scanning techniques for Project Mara. This is really in-depth news. It became one of my most successful videos, and that's why you always search for these kind of topics, of course. That not every media or mainstream media site is using, because you don't. Last week, if you did a Bethesda video as a small YouTube channel, you simply tank, because YouTube gets flooded with all the big media outlets about Bethesda news, and then you just have no chance. And that's why you need to have these in-depth news, and to keep up with those for all 3 platforms. Like you said, as a single guy, it's almost impossible. Not if you have, again, a job and something else in your life as well.
A game publisher or something like that. It's a bit different.
Even if you do it full time. It's hard.
Your work.
Yeah.
Dear me. No, it's just been an absolute pleasure sitting here with you today, brother. Eventually got around to doing it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. I like the format. I like the channel of yours in general. I mean, that's why I gladly joined the Midweek Mix-Up podcast each and every week. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And your channel is growing as well. It's getting bigger and bigger. Of course, with a channel that mainly focuses on a podcast, it's slow rate. The growth rate is, of course, a little bit slower, but you're doing a real good job, and you're also expanding a lot with new formats like this one here. And it was my honor to be a part of this here.
No problem, brother. No problem. It's always a pleasure to have you on, of course, and obviously love having you on the podcast. When you're not inundated with requests from other podcasts as well.
Yeah, that's sometimes the thing. Yeah, you have. Usually I'm on your podcast and Boom's podcast, but that's 2 podcasts per week, and then you get, of course, the extra invites sometimes, and you want to do that because it's fun to talk to other gamers in other communities
and things like that.
Yeah. So, but then it really becomes a time issue. Yeah, sometimes you need to do the video, then you need to do podcast 1, podcast 2, and sometimes you actually want to play games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Me. But no, absolute pleasure speaking to you today, and I hope everybody else enjoyed it too. Before we go, if you want to let everybody know where they can find you and what you've got coming up or what you've just released.
Yeah, of course you can find me everywhere, basically, on Twitter, YouTube, of course, here on YouTube, and Xbox Live and PlayStation Network at Boxenberger. I'm also on the Switch. If you want my friend code, I don't know that by heart. I have to look it up. Just DM me. I can send that code over. Yeah, I just uploaded today a video on the future of the Xbox Game Studios, how they use technology and share technology across their studios, what kind of technology that is, and just how the Xbox Game Studios have set themselves up to be ready for this new generation that has only just begun. Yeah, and the next video, I have 2 topics in mind. I haven't decided. Let's wait for the rest of the week. What news will we get? Yeah, that's what is on the channel right now.
Awesome stuff. Again, pleasure having you on. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode of Know Your Creator with Archimedes Boxenberger. Again, you can find them at the social links, which will be underneath the video. And I hope you all have a nice night, and we'll see you later.
Yeah, thank you. See you.